I'd like to welcome the South Alabama Jaguars to the 2023 college football season. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Sunbelt, your team every day. Thanks for tuning in. Quite the day yesterday. Before I talk about that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I ended up about even yesterday. Started out bad. And then slowly climbed my way back into it, but I ended up even, which technically is a win in my book, unfortunately. All right, we will talk about the Power 5 games yesterday and JMU surviving. We'll get to the bulk of the Week 3 recap tomorrow. But South Alabama that was what I expected them to do from the get-go. I'm not sure why they didn't play that way against Tulane. I'm not sure why they didn't play that way against Southeastern. They're banged up. Keith Gallman isn't playing. Devin Voisin isn't playing. But they just did not look. I mean, they looked disinterested, disorganized, discombobulated, whatever it was against Tulane and Southeastern. And that's not the way they looked against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State isn't that good, but that doesn't change the fact they're Power 5. And South Alabama's in the Sun Belt. Because South Alabama, I mean, I was reading previews just to find out, do a little research. Some people thought that the wrong team was favored. And we knew that was going to be an interesting ball game because Oklahoma State's going through all kinds of transfer portal issues. They're playing 3 quarterbacks. It's outrageous. But South Alabama has all this talent, and it wasn't able to come together until yesterday. And they were outstanding, right? Let's see, we got the drives. They scored on their first 3 drives, scoring a field goal, and that was only due to a drop. I don't know if they would have had a touchdown, but I think Colin Lacey would have gotten a first down, I think, but he had dropped it. Didn't drop the next 2, though, did he? They got a couple of touchdowns, and they're off to the races. Missed an extra point, bad snap. Or bad hold. And it was 16-0. And this game is unbelievable. The offense sputtered a little bit after that. They still finished with a touchdown at the end of the half. Another deep ball to Colin Lacey. And it's 23-0 into halftime. And you want to hear Oklahoma State's drives? 6 plays punt, 3 plays punt. 2 plays interception, 7 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 5 plays punt, 3 plays punt, 9 plays punt. They did put a nice 17-play drive that lasted 6 minutes between the third and fourth quarters, but that wasn't until the game was out of control. LaDainian Webb is outstanding. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe it's as simple as that. If LaDainian Webb, A, doesn't fumble to begin the Tulane game, and B, is his normal self, instead of on a pitch count, apparently, which he was, maybe the games are different because he made a big difference in the Southeastern game when he was playing. It was very different. And I even went on Oklahoma City radio this past week to say, I don't know what to expect from South Alabama, except if LaDainian Webb is having a good ball game, it's going to be a good game for South Alabama. Carter Bradley was very good, still has some issues, right? On 3rd and 6, he's throwing an 8-yard pass for 100 miles an hour. Not the easiest pass to throw. Another one, he was rolling left and misses DJ Thomas. Should have been an easy pass and was well over Thomas' head. Again, not the easiest throw. He's moving left and he's trying to loft it for Thomas to make a play. And he's got to make that play. This is when the game was being blown out. But, you know, in other games against Troy or JMU, that's a pass that has to be completed when you're wide open. Carter's stats weren't eye-opening per se, right? 10 to 16, 152 yards, a couple of nice touchdown passes. And again, Lacey dropped Well, may have been a touchdown, certainly a first down. But when you got Webb rushing for 151 yards and Kentrell Bullock rushing for 71 yards, you're in good shape. They averaged 5 yards carry, sack adjusted almost 6. And the defense was ridiculously good for South Alabama. And this is what I expected. So I didn't understand why they were over-under was like 7.5 wins or 8 wins. Now you're looking at it. Well, Troy is off to not a great start. We still don't know what the Cajuns are. They may have lost their quarterback, but maybe the next quarterback is better. Southern Miss is not nearly what we thought they were. Texas State is really good. That's not until the end of the year. Arkansas State finally got off the schneid. We'll see what ULM is. I mean, we said the West was wide open, but South Alabama absolutely appears to be the best team in the West. We'll see if it carries over. They get Central Michigan. And then they get Texas State comes into the Cajuns. That's a good question. Who does South Alabama get? Who do they get schedule-wise right after that? Oh, they get James Madison. There you go. So that's going to be a huge ball game. All right, 2 weeks away. That's going to be an enormous ball game. To kind of set the tone for the rest of the season. If somehow they can go into Harrisonburg and beat James Madison, they may start getting top 25 votes. If that's the case. Because now all of a sudden they have only lost on the road to Tulane. And Tulane looks pretty good, at least defensively. And if they get Michael Pratt back, they're going to be really good. So maybe that loss, although they didn't play very well, maybe that loss will be taken into account that Tulane's a pretty good football team. So I think South Alabama, again, maybe, I don't know what it took to wake them up. Halftime against Southeastern, it was 7-7. Whatever it was, they need to keep it up. They are hurting. All right. It looked like there may be a couple more injuries from yesterday's ball game, from yesterday's ball game. So we'll see moving forward. But Carter's got to take it to the next level somewhere along the way. Again, really a nice couple of throws. You know, the first touchdown to Lacey was underneath, if you will, and a nice crossing pattern. Oh my goodness, how about that? And Lacey did the rest of the work. But then he hit Lacey down the sideline. What was that, like a 59-yard pass? And you know, he did and Carter Bradley hit him in 57-yard pass, and he hit him in stride. So when you could do that, you know you're in good shape. So they get Central Michigan, and then at JMU. And again, that'll set the tone for the Sun Belt. It is their Sun Belt opener. And if they're trying, it's not in the division, and JMU can't win anything this year. But nonetheless, that'll mean JMU will have beaten Troy and South Alabama. So if they want to raise a banner without, pulling a UCF, but in this case, it may be for real. You couldn't blame them. So that'll be a tough ball game, in a couple of weeks. But what a great job by South Alabama to join the 2023 season, really kind of announcing their presence with authority in week 3. All right, so great job by them. We'll see what the injuries are moving forward, and if that affects them. They should take care of Central Michigan at home, although Central Michigan didn't play that poorly against Notre Dame, right? I mean, they kind of hung tight with them for a little bit. So don't overlook the Chippewas. That kind of got the season going last year, winning on the road early on in the season. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the teams that did miss opportunities as Georgia Southern and ODU really each shot themselves in the foot. It was not pretty whatsoever. All right, let me tell you about Betterhelp, actually a service that I'm using. All right, do you ever find that just as you're trying to fall asleep, your brain suddenly won't stop talking? Do your thoughts start racing right before bed or at other inopportune moments? Turns out that a great way to make those racing thoughts go away is talk them through. Therapy gives you a place to do that so you can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace. All right, so I'm feeling it a little bit pressure-wise and could kind of feel it was heading in one direction. And so I did want to talk to people about it, and I used Betterhelp. All right, it is something to use remotely. It was really easy, had a great conversation, and I plan on doing it again. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, which it was, flexible and suited to your schedule, which it was as well. I'm in Central Time, and I had to do it after my show, so this was in the evening, so that was great. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime at no additional charge. Get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedoncollege. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Missed opportunities. We got to start with Georgia Southern. I mean, Davis Brin had a Georgia Southern kind of game yesterday. Could not get out of his own way. I know a couple of times he got hit and balls were tipped and yada, yada, yada. 5 interceptions, 1 fumble. You're not winning ball games when you do that. They had Georgia Southern had a 14-7 lead in the third quarter and somehow managed to lose 35-14. I mean, somewhere along the way, whether it be tipped or he's getting hit or whatever the case is, you got to make a change. And they waited way too long to make a change, like after the 6th turnover. Admittedly, I had Georgia Southern covering, which they did not, and put a little bit on the money line because there was a big opportunity there. But I mean, the 33 out of 52 sounds good. 383 yards. The 5 interceptions is very frustrating. And that was what was separating Georgia Southern last year from being a pretty good team, being an average team, to a really good team, was Kyle Van Treese's interceptions. Davis Brin brought that to another level. 5 in one game. Let me see when they had that 14-7 lead right at the beginning of the third quarter. What do we do? Do we need to see these drives? Jeez. Play by play. Let's see here. 14 after it was 14-7, interception, fumble. And some of the throws were bad. Some of the decisions were bad. I know a couple of them were when he got hit, and some were tipped, but some of the decisions were just bad. And Georgia Southern's going to have to make a decision. Are we just going to keep on going with that? Because that was what the problem was last year. They absolutely missed an opportunity to beat Wisconsin yesterday. Forget the covering part. They could have beaten Wisconsin yesterday. They outgained Wisconsin 455-451. They held the ball more, 31 and a half minutes to 28 and a half minutes. 6 turnovers to none. And they still only lost by 21 points. It has got to be frustrating for Clay Helton to see that, because despite that score, they very well could have beaten the Wisconsin Badgers. All right. They missed an opportunity. It just kept on snowballing. And they just couldn't do it. And the defense got exhausted. The defense became exhausted because every time the defense came off the field, the offense gave it back to Wisconsin. They can't do that. You can't do that to move forward. They're going to have to make a decision. Is Davis Brin going to be the guy? Or are we going to go, J.C. French came in late in the ball game, but that's way too little and way too late. All right. So we'll see. You don't want to make one game that idea, but you can't be having multiple turnovers in games. And it can't be because of bad decisions. And it looked like a couple of times it was poor decisions as the balls were thrown right to Wisconsin defenders. It just seemed bad. And that was a problem with Davis Brin last year at Tulsa. And, despite him playing well a couple of times, he has thrown interceptions this year, and now he played poorly, and it cost Georgia Southern a win at Wisconsin. All right. Now moving on to ODU. And they definitely let one slip away. And again, had ODU on the money line and had them covering, which they did. But this was even worse than what Georgia Southern did, right? This was a 24-7 ball game in the third quarter. Halfway through the third quarter on a pick six. 24-7. The defense actually gets a stop. Well, they may have had some help with penalties. They make them kick a field goal. They made them kick 2 field goals. It's a 24-13 game heading into the fourth quarter. You need a field goal or a touchdown or 2 field goals to win this ball game, and they just handed it back. The offense was not nearly as efficient or as explosive as it was against the Cajuns. They gave up 10 sacks, did ODU. 25 first downs for Wake and 14 for ODU. The only reason Wake was in this is because they turned it over 3 times. They controlled the ball 35 minutes to 25 minutes and somehow still won only by 3. And a lot of that was a fumble at the end was the difference in the game. Wake Forest makes it 24-20. And on 3rd and 11, Grant Wilson fumbles, and Wake eventually 2 plays later puts it into the end zone. 27-24. ODU has a shot the next series to, go down and kick a field goal and tie the thing up. 3 plays, -1 yard. This is a ball game ODU should have won. I guess Georgia Southern could have won it, but this is a ball game they should have won. A little bit disappointed in the crowd too. Early, noon ball game, gorgeous day. It was not packed for Wake Forest, and ODU missed an opportunity to, I guess, shock the nation. We watched it because it's Sunbelt. They looked really good against. What's going on here? They looked really good against the Cajuns. Offensively, they didn't look very good against Wake Forest. How many yards did they even have offensively? 300. Only 11 out of 27. Wake Forest did a good job even from the beginning, right? If Wake Forest doesn't turn it over a few times, they probably pull away from this, but they kept on turning it over. They had two defensive scores. They had a scoop and score and a pick 6. Yeah. ODU's waking up this morning. Damn. That's how they're waking up this morning. They should have won that football game. Georgia Southern could have won the football game. ODU should have won the football game. They played really poorly once they got a 24-7 lead, and Wake wouldn't go away. Kick a field goal, right? Get a stop, make it a touchdown. Get another stop, turnover. We win the game. ODU missed an opportunity. We'll see what happens moving forward. I presume what the Cajuns did not do was get pressure on Grant Wilson. I presume that's what teams are going to do moving forward, is to get pressure on Grant Wilson, because he had issues yesterday trying to set up. Not all his fault, obviously, right? But a lot of it was Wake kind of selling out, right? We're going to sell out and we're going to get home because we're going to bring more guys than you can block. Like, I think one of the first plays was like bringing like 6-7 guys. Someone's open, but if you don't, not hitting the first option, you're going to have issues, right? So that was it. Missed opportunities for Georgia Southern and ODU. We'll see how they bounce back after really, demoralizing losses. Flat out demoralizing losses. All right. When we come back, JMU survives. They have a win and move on against Troy. They let people know about it too. They did let people know about it as well. It is time for me to tell you about Athletic Brewing Company. Now is a time for your Game Changer of the Week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Ladanian Webb of South Alabama, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. Ladanian Webb, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, 65-yarder, absolutely made a huge difference for the South Alabama Jaguars in their win over Oklahoma State, 33-7. Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good, full of flavor and well-crafted, just like a full-strength beer. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you, or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use Locked On to get 15% of your first online order. That's Locked On, LOCKEDON, at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewingcompany.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We'll do more wrapping up from week 3 on Monday, but just wanted to put out a Sunday episode while everyone is enjoying their NFL and recovering. If you did say it for the Colorado State game, which I did, that ended at 1:30 or 1:30ish Central Time. My goodness, imagine watching that on the East Coast. JMU beats Troy 16-14, and they didn't get a chance to do it last year. They did not get a chance to meet Troy in the championship ball game. They did take down Coastal Carolina, but again, that ridiculous FCS to FBS rule prohibits them from doing that, and one of those things you can't do anything about. I will say Troy found their defense. JMU is averaging 37.5 points a game. They scored 16. Kicked a couple of field goals. Could never pull away. Tried as they may, they had issues offensively, which will make that ball game interesting against South Alabama in a couple of weeks. But Troy is just not built to come back. They're not built to come from behind. I think they led it 7-3, right, early on. Or actually, their only lead was 7-6. So they were behind for most of the game. Jordan McLeod, a pedestrian, 18-26 with a touchdown. Keelan Black, 78 yards on 13 carries. And Tayson Lawton, 55 yards on 14 carries. They average like 2.3 yards a carry. Some are due to sacks and losses. Let me see if JMU had any turnovers. No, the only turnover belonged to Troy. So again, pedestrian numbers for Jordan McLeod, but no turnovers. As we mentioned, those were not a factor. They were the factors in, the South Alabama win, the Georgia Southern loss, and the ODU loss. If JMU has a turnover, they probably lose the game. Gunnar Watson put up some interesting numbers, 25 of 46, 332 yards, a couple of touchdowns, but an interception. And James Madison did a really good job at shutting down the Troy running game. They could not run the football. Kamani Vidal, not a Kamani Vidal kind of game. 11 carries, 27 yards. Gunnar Watson sacked a bunch, lost 44 yards. Technically, Troy rushed 19 times for minus 12 yards. Again, that'll be a big matchup. South Alabama's running game to JMU's rushing defense. JMU is 3-0. They're sitting on top. I have this. I need to turn off the autoplay. Jeez. Sorry about that. So Troy, James Madison, 3-0. 1-0 in the conference. Troy is 1-2. They're 0-1 in the conference. The defense was better. The offense seemed to be where it was. They do get Western Kentucky coming up. That's at home. Then they're going at Georgia State. And Georgia State, by the way, is 3-0. Is that a win? They get Arkansas State. Army continues their run through the Sun Belt. They're doing it again. Then they're at Texas State. I mean, so say Western Kentucky's a win. Georgia State's going to be favored. They'll be favored against Arkansas State. They got to go to West Point. That seems like a pick 'em at best. And as of right now, unless they win all of those games, and I'm not sure they'll beat Georgia State, they're going to be an underdog at Texas State. They get, this is not easy. At Army, at Texas State, home against South Alabama. We'll see where Troy is at that point in time because they still haven't found themselves this season. All right. They still haven't found themselves this season. Right now, JMU is 3-0. Georgia State 3-0. Marshall had an odd off week. Had an off week early on in the season. They're 2-0. App State with a nice win. We'll go over these. They're 2-1. Coastal with a big win, 2-1. Georgia Southern with their first loss of the year. South Alabama 2-1. Texas State 2-1. Monroe 2-1. A-State scored a couple of touchdowns. Yay! In fact, more than a couple of touchdowns. They're 1-2. Southern Miss drops to 1-2. And the Cajuns, a really impressive win on the road at UAB. They're 2-1, but they may have lost their quarterback. We'll find out a little bit more on Monday. All right, everybody enjoy your NFL Sunday. We'll be back with another edition. We'll wrap up the games that we didn't talk about today, tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in and continued to support the channel. We're growing. We'll probably end up not quite 200 subscribers this month, but 100 is pretty cool. We'll see if we can somehow get to, I guess, 800 by Halloween. Maybe it'll be 1,000 by Thanksgiving or Christmas, but we're still tracking, and we had our best week ever in audio downloads. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Remember to subscribe on YouTube. Let your fellow Sunbelt fans know about it. And wherever you get your audio podcast, and again, Apple Podcast and Spotify seem to be the most prevalent, most popular. We do appreciate your support. Once again, I'm Dave Schultz, and you've been listening and watching Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.